Okay, well, as we get started, like I said, we want to give you the CGMA 101 or the overview of Coast Guard Mutual Assistance, so you are well equipped with good information about CGMA as you help us raise funds for the annual campaign. CGMA is actually a nonprofit organization, and this is a really exciting year because we've been around for 100 years, and we're marking that this year, as you can see from our celebration anniversary logo here. We want you to know that who CGMA is, who we serve, how we help, and how we're funded. One of the things that can happen is you can think that you know information about CGMA, and you probably do, but there's so much more. CGMA has a lot of far-reaching resources and programs that may be lesser known, and we want to make sure you're equipped and you can help others find out more about CGMA, because oftentimes during the campaign, actually there's an increase in requests for assistance as well. And we want to make sure you know who your rep is if you aren't a CGMA rep yourself as a coordinator, and how you can point people to the resources to get assistance. So who is CGMA? CGMA is Coast Guard Mutual Assistance. It was founded as the League of Coast Guard Women in 1924, and we are actually a nonprofit organization. Because we're so closely linked with the Coast Guard, sometimes people think we are a Coast Guard benefit or part of the official Coast Guard organization, and we're not. We're actually a nonprofit organization. So as people donate, they're donating to an organization where they can take a tax deduction for their donations. So CGMA at its heart is Coast Guard people helping Coast Guard people. The bulk of our donations come from Coast Guard people. And we do a lot of assistance based on interest-free loans and grants. Gosnell, can you help me make sure that I'm getting a little feedback. I'm not sure if that's me or another person that might not be on mute. Thanks so much. And we are available to give assistance as a place of giving hope in times of trouble. And one of the ways we do that is with the Coalition of Relief. So that's our relationship with all the other aid societies. Each branch of the military has an aid society, and we actually are connected with them, so that if a Coastie needs help and they're closer to an Army base, they can actually get help from there. And the same goes for a soldier or an airman can get help from CGMA. And this really helps for our retired community, or where people might be located closer to a different one of the different aid societies. But all told, we serve 2.5 million service members. And how CGMA does that is actually through our representatives that are located at over 160 locations around the Coast Guard. So CGMA exists right where you live and work, and can get assistance to you in a timely manner. So how do we do that? We help provide financial assistance to the Coast Guard community through three main areas of assistance. So disaster and emergency relief. If you've been in the hurricane zone or you are there, that's actually been really active for the past few years. So our disaster and emergency relief is something that stands up with the local PSTs that happen in response to widespread disasters. But disasters don't only affect individuals, and we'll talk don't affect just widespread areas. They sometimes affect individuals, and we'll talk more about the range of disaster emergency relief in a little bit. And so the other areas of assistance is day-to-day support, and then certainly education assistance. And we do that, like I mentioned, through grants and 0% interest loans. And that really is to help with the financial resiliency of the Coast Guard, so that short-term challenges don't become long-term problems. So how does CGMA help? We help with immediate needs and temporary problems, and help with life's essentials. We realize that life is unpredictable and it's impossible to account for every situation. And sometimes a short-term problem gets bigger because it's compounded by another unexpected thing. And we want to help get assistance at the ready, so members can get stability back in their lives. And this requires effective stewardship of our funds. And so that means we don't help with non-essentials or living beyond your means, or we can't become a stipend. We're not available for long-term support. So as I mentioned, disaster and emergency relief. This is generally our deepest financial assistance, where we often put out several $million in response to storms. And that has been very true for this situation. The picture here is actually of Hurricane Ian, which was a Category 4, which did extensive damage in Florida. So disaster and emergency relief, like I mentioned, that's the wildfires, water issues that happened in Hawaii, and hurricane response, flooding, and other such natural disasters. But it also could be an individual disaster or something that happens during a PCS move. So we can help with basic living expenses, those emergency car and essential home repairs, everything from funeral expenses to medical support, and then temporary living expenses. So there's certainly lots of situations where there are major disasters, but the Coast Guard community can count on CGMA as a trusted and reliable resource in the midst of their recovery. And so this is just a little picture of what's happened. It's been really eventful since right before the pandemic, and that was with the lapse of appropriations. And you can see that large dark blue line is where we provided 8.5 million in just 35 days. And then in the pandemic, we did 3.5 million in grants and 4.4 million overall in total pandemic support and COVID assistance. And in the last few years, we've done over 5 million, almost 5.5, but 5.4 million in hurricanes. And then last year, with Typhoon Mawar, gave a lot of support to those in Guam that were recovering. And then there's been a host of other smaller events, the Texas winter storm, Puerto Rico power outages, the D14 water issue, and then various pay issues that people have. So anytime that there's an emergency, CGMA is showing up and helping bring stability to members.
Yeah. And Erica, can I add one more thing
to
absolutely.
That? Yep.
It's also, it's interesting to me to note that, you know, the last 5 years have been really busy, all those things that Erica mentioned, and all of CGMA's historical assistance. So we've been around for 100 years. Over 20% of all of our historical assistance has been given out in the last 5 years. Yeah. So we have touched a lot of people, and that's part of why this campaign is so important, is because people have seen firsthand the importance of CGMA. So that's my little introduction.
Absolutely. That's a great point, that it's far-reaching, and there have been thousands of members, including maybe yourself, and pay attention to that. Your story matters, especially if you've seen firsthand how CGMA has helped. So our second bucket of assistance, as we affectionately call them, is our day-to-day support. And this, a lot of this assistance often touches the family members. So it can help with housing assistance and vehicle support, as well as family building. And I'll let Elena in a few moments talk about one of our newest programs that just launched within the last week or so. So first things first, housing assistance. This is, as you change duty station, this can help with first and last month's rent, closing costs if you're purchasing a home, everything from utility startup loans. We get it. Housing is really expensive. And sometimes there's even a move that's required while you're at a duty station. Something changes in your housing situation, and rent is a steep increase, and there actually has to be a move outside of a PCS. And we do have a supplemental grant of up to $1,000 to help with those costs. And then even PCS incidentals loan for just the various costs. We know, we get it, moving is expensive, and we want to be a help in that process. Transportation assistance, this can be everything from vehicle repair, essential vehicle repair, to some of those unique situations that our members face when they're going OCONUS, shipping their vehicle or a car rental while they're waiting for a vehicle to arrive. And then, like I mentioned, family support. There's all sorts of assistance to help all the members of the family. So we do have family building support for adoption and fertility assistance. And I'll mention one before I turn it over to Elena to talk about our newest program. But if you know someone in your unit who's expecting a baby, we do have a baby gift. It's called a layette, and that is just baby supplies, and it's a really sweet welcome baby package. It also includes a book and a sippy cup, and is really great way to say welcome to the Coast Guard family. And I'll turn it over to Elena now to talk about our newest CGMA program.
All right, thanks, Erica. Yes, so we are so excited to announce a partnership with WIN. WIN Fertility is one of the industry leading fertility benefits companies. So they provide and manage fertility benefits for huge companies. And they are offering those benefits to CGMA clients cost-free. And so what it looks like is pairing members with a nurse advocate just to help through navigating that process, whether that's IVF or adoption, surrogacy, whatever that family building process that looks right for the member. They're there to help guide you through that situation and all of those details, understand the complex medical jargon, know how best to utilize both what TRICARE does cover. TRICARE doesn't cover a lot, but they do cover some things. And so making sure that we're utilizing those benefits efficiently. And then also utilizing CGMA's $6,000 fertility family building loan as well. So really excited about that. We have a small hiccup in the technology that allows for registration. We're hoping to get that figured out this week, but if anyone is interested in that, like immediately, I'm meeting with my doctor tomorrow, I want in, send me an email. I'm happy to get you set up. We don't want that to be a hindrance with anything. But certainly before the campaign kicks off, April 1st, we'll have information for all of you on that program. I also put in the chat, but just a quick note for everybody on the call, this PowerPoint presentation is what we call our CGMA 101, and it is available in the list of campaign coordinator resources on our website. And there's lots of additional details in there. We're being quick and dirty today just because we have a lot to cover. But if you have questions about any of our programs or want more information, it's all there. And we can certainly talk about programs specifically today as well.
Yep. And one other aspect of family support, and this is one of the things that is available to active duty members, is our special needs support. And actually want to show you the picture of a family that got some special needs support from us, and that is the Truck family. They were making a PCS transition, and their medically fragile boys needed assistance with a cooling vest and assistance in the travel to make a safe journey to their new PCS spot, and we were able to help them with a grant. So this is a great family that was helped with CGMA donor dollars, and they are safe and sound and thriving in their new location. All right, education assistance. This is probably the one that a lot of people are familiar with, in that there is a very popular program that has touched a good chunk of Coast Guard members, and that is our supplemental education grant. And that went gangbusters last year with helping people, because it was expanded ability to help purchase computers for post-secondary education. But the SEG is not our only education program. We actually have a lot of them, and some of them are fairly new. So let me touch on a couple of those because they're expanded and folks might not know about them. One is our Education Advocate Grant, and this is to help with special needs family members who are needing an education plan, and sometimes it just takes time, and we want to help family members get their IEPs in place as soon as possible, and the Education Advocate Grant helps with that. And we also have the Spouse Professional Requirements Loan, and this helps spouses who after a PCS need help getting registered in a new state with their professional requirements. And then one of the most recent is the CG Cool loan, and that is for the credentialing opportunities online courses, and that's up to $4,500. In my screen keeps advancing. Sorry, it's rushing me. So the Cool loan is also available, an interest-free loan that helps people pursue their credentialing as they progress in their Coast Guard career. And then there's everything from the Stafford Plus Loan Fee Grant, and that's reimbursement for fees that are associated with taking out a Stafford or Plus loan, and then just a generic education loan, and that can be used for tuition. So there's a lot of assistance available for post-secondary education needs. All right, so how is CGMA funded? We've talked about it a little bit, but we want to let you see kind of where the numbers are. CGMA is funded largely by you. It's funded by those allotments and payroll deductions by active duty and retirees and civilian employees, and that is really the bread and butter of our funding. So we are reliant on those individual contributions, and it really takes the group effort of lots of payroll deductions and allotments to make that happen. And one of the challenging things that we are facing is that actually over the last few years, active duty donors and donations have continued to fall. And that's something that we hope that the campaign will do something to reverse. So if you can see, our assistance has gone up and continues to increase as we try to help. And that's that blue line, but the navy blue bars show the amount, the number of donors falling over the last few years. So we do not receive actually any government funding. So we really are reliant on the goodwill and the generosity of the Coast Guard community to make our organization be as useful and resilient as it can be. And actually, it's a really good investment to donate to CGMA, because for every dollar donated in 2023, we actually were able to provide $2.28 of assistance. So we're more than doubling what is given in terms of assistance output. And so that's a really good news story in terms of what CGMA can do. And Elena will talk more about it, but our goal this year is actually 100% unit participation, actually 100 for 100. So because it's a special year for CGMA, we really want to encourage unit-wide participation in the campaign. And we can only do that if we reach people individually and invite them to contribute. So our campaign is around the corner. It runs throughout the month of April, and we want to talk about ways to organize for success. And one of the ways we can do that is by having a kickoff and maybe hosting a fundraiser that it makes sense for your unit, depending on the size, and then celebrating the win and encouraging the folks that they're making an impact, because they truly are making a difference with their donations. And so one of the ways to organize for success is to use the resources that are provided. Elena mentioned that we do have a campaign website, and when you registered as a campaign coordinator, you were sent an email that had a link to the campaign, the coordinator instructions, and hopefully you've been able to have a chance to review those and see what the campaign entails and how to recruit key workers, especially if your unit is over 50 people, to have key workers that help you get that 100% reach. And then have a kickoff.
Oh, sorry, Erica. A note on key workers. So I've been taking quick attendance on this call, and everybody here is at a unit that's over 50 people. So everyone should be recruiting key workers. We'll talk a little bit about kind of what that looks like. But best practice is you have at least one key worker for every 50 people in your unit. And so know that you're going to need some help in order to reach your goals.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thanks. So we've got lots of large units on the call. That's great. So yes, key workers are going to help get those donation forms and flyers into individual hands, and then making the ask, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and making that personal invitation, because that's really what makes a difference in having a successful campaign. And for your kickoff, we do have some funds available, and that is covered in your coordinator instructions. And I have a slide a little bit later that shows that matrix for the size of your unit, expected attendance at the event, and the funds that might be available. And then host a fundraiser. Fundraisers are a great way. We have a fundraising guide with a lot of great ideas, but mostly those ideas have come from the field of what people have done that has worked well, from everything from a pie in the face contest to penny wars, to scavenger hunts and chili cook-offs. So that really, you know your unit, you know what works for the morale of your unit, and we encourage you to do those sorts of things. And we've had burrito breakfasts and Chick-fil-A sandwiches. So there's really a real kind of open palette in terms of what you can do that might be successful for your unit. And just a little clarification, because there's often questions about this most years. The kickoff funds are related to kind of that initial event, maybe an all hands or something where you're getting information out to a large group of people, and the funds are for that. The funds that we have are not for fundraisers. So fundraisers, you can, if there's a cost associated, you can retain it from the proceeds and then submit the proceeds from the fundraiser. So CGMA funding is available for the kickoff and not for the fundraiser. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Elena for a second to give you a little bit more information on how to make that ask.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. Okay, so we started to talk about key workers and the importance of key workers. So those fundraising events and the kickoff event, that's excitement generating, right? That's awareness generating, and that's what's going to build energy. It's best to host those earlier in your campaign, help people understand what CGMA is, what we have to offer, do all of that education up front. But then to be successful and to have the donations, you're going to be most successful with one-on-one. And so in the coordinator instructions, there's pretty detailed instructions on what that looks like. And basically, you're going to ask every single person, would you like to give? Would you like to purchase? Would you like to make a gift to support CGMA? And that question is why people give, right? So the number one reason people don't give is because they're never asked. So that's going to be really important, and it's impossible for you to ask 233 people individually how that's going to work. So get those key workers, people who can involve and help you make those one-on-one conversations. Never under duress. Donations are always optional. It's okay if people say no, thank you, but we want to make sure that we give people the opportunity. So make sure that you look over those instructions. If you have questions, your donor care team, everybody here, we're happy to help with that. I'm happy to help. Pick up the phone, call me. I'm here to help. We do have a question. So are we allowed to solicit donations on behalf of CGMA? That's a great question. So, and we have this in, I think it's in the campaign coordinator instructions, and it's certainly online. As an active duty member, you are absolutely allowed to fundraise for CGMA internally. So you can ask your peers, you can ask everybody in your official capacity to raise money for CGMA. It does get complicated if you're going outside. So in this example, like to see Chick-fil-A, hey, Chick-fil-A, would you donate for the CGMA campaign? You can't do that in your official capacity, but you can do it as a CGMA volunteer. So you can't go in uniform, you can't, do that, but as a CGMA volunteer, that's absolutely fine. But does that distinction make sense? You can come off mute and clarify if that's not. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's a great question, a good distinction.
And that's a specific coverage for you. The Commandant's guidance is quoted in your campaign coordinator instructions. So if you or your command have specific questions, happy to chat with you more, but there is that specific guidance is quoted in your campaign coordinator instructions.
And the other thing I'll say is that every unit is going to be different, right? Because different units have different makeups of, seniority and different things. And so, you know your unit best. And so you're going to know if a one-time donation or like a start an allotment ask is going to be more effective, or you might be in a unit where, people are more senior, they've had their allotments. Your ask might be, would you increase your allotment? And you don't know. You're not going to know who already gives and who doesn't. But that's also a good reminder that we give people is to not set and forget your allotment, because many of us have started our $2 allotment when we got in and then haven't touched it in 10 years, 15 years. And so making sure that we're revisiting that is also just a good reminder to give people. Don't set it and forget it. All right.
All right, just want to make sure you know that CGMA actually has a new website. So if you, if it's been a year, if you've been a campaign coordinator before and you haven't been online, CGMA's new website is mycgma.org. And we want to make sure that that you can point people to the Get Help area if they have questions on programs, or to know who your local rep is if you're not the rep. And that you can do under the Find My Representative over in the right-hand corner. And then people can actually make their campaign contribution online, and they can go to the donate button and change their allotment right online. The one caveat is that they need to remember to use their OPVAC. So you can advertise that or remind them of that so that you get credit. And we'll talk about how you can see the progress of the campaign in just a little bit. All right, so this is actually what the pledge form looks like. And most of you should have them in hand. The brochures, pledge forms, and posters arrived last week at most locations. And once we get if you've had any trouble receiving those, but do check your mail rooms. The shipping was for arrival mid-March, and we're very glad to say that they arrived early, so you can get set up and get posters posted at high traffic areas, and they're nice and large with QR codes on them to make giving really easy. And then we do want to touch on what is available on the annual campaign webpage, which is mycgma.org/annual-campaign, or actually we have it as well. So mycgma.org/campaign will also work. And that is going to give you weekly sample emails, sample kickoff remarks, the frequently asked questions, those instructions, fundraising guide, and this PowerPoint, except for the slides related to the prep call, is available for you. And that is all available online, and we will also be emailing reminders each week. So make sure that if someone else should be getting the campaign emails, they can sign up right there on this website as well and register as a campaign coordinator or key worker. All right, tips for success. CGMA works best if you can share the real reason that people get the assistance, and personal stories make a difference. So if you know of someone and you can invite someone locally to say how assistance helped them, that would be awesome. CGMA also has leadership speakers available, particularly for, we are a varied staff. We're only 12 staff members located around the US, so we might be able to help in person if you're local to us, one of our local areas, or we certainly can take an online opportunity to be a speaker at one of your events. But introduce yourself to your local rep. I've mentioned this a couple times, but it really makes a difference. That rep knows the impact of the local assistance and can help tell that story really well. And as Elena mentioned, consider an allotment. Don't set it and forget it, and really consider yourself. Consider this your invitation. Have you considered donating to CGMA, and would you consider an increase to your allotment? And being able to do that early in the campaign, you can speak to that and say, hey, I didn't realize my allotment had been around for 8 or 9 years, and I thought it was time to increase it. And that could be part of your personal share about how you're investing in CGMA. All right, as I mentioned, this is the campaign kickoff expenses matrix. This is just for the size of your unit and the amount of funding that is available without prior approval. If you need something different or you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to that campaign at mycgma.org. That's a great email address that goes to the whole team. So that just means you'll get an answer as quick as possible, because several of us are monitoring that email address, and we can help you. Then for reimbursement, you just submit Form 32, which is available on the website, on the campaign website, and you submit it, and we Zelle reimbursement. It's a very quick process. Usually you have it within a week. All right, I'm going to pause now and take it off the screen to ask if there are any questions. And I know Elena said she's been monitoring the chat, but this is your chance to share if you have any questions.
I know people will let people cough off mute, but I promised that we would talk a little bit about hosting a campaign in a virtual space. So I know that post-pandemic, not everybody is on site 5 days a week. And so what does that look like? And I think, to be honest, we're still figuring that out. So as you go throughout your campaign, if you find something that works really, really well, share it with the group so that other people can be successful and learn from that as well. I will say that Teams has been a game changer, and that you can have very similar conversations in a Teams environment. So in the same way that you might pop by somebody's desk and have that quick donor conversation, hey, like, would you like to give to CGMA? You could do that through a Teams call. So that would be one way. In the campaign resources, we do have a social media kit, which includes a weekly email that you can send. So that's a great way to engage people who may not be physically or geographically located with you. But there just really isn't a substitute for that face-to-face connection. So as much as you can cultivate that, that's really what I would encourage you to do. And we didn't mention this specifically, but also avoid just putting stacks of materials on a table somewhere. Give them in people's hands. So at a kickoff, totally fine to have everything out kind of at the start of the campaign, but you can't expect people to just like take it of their own volition. Like, you're going to be more successful if you actually like hand that material, hand that pledge form, hand that brochure to somebody, talk about it together. You're going to be more successful that way. Okay, so I will pause. What questions do we have?
So really, well, the question is, what are some historically successful fundraising activities? It's the ones that you execute. To be honest, there's been lots of success from really small initiatives that from penny wars to with friendly competition within a unit, to everything as large as a color run, where there is a big investment because it was a large. It was in base Portsmouth area, and there was enough lead up time and a volunteer corps that was able to support it. But that is not required. Certainly, we know that op tempo can be really challenging. I don't think we have a lot of cutters on this particular call, but we know that you have to respond to the op tempo of your office and knowing what works for your unit. But I would say anything that brings visibility and brings a friendly sense of competition, or just something that's wildly popular. And so Cape May has had another example is Cape May has had a car show competition, and they voted for the best jalopies, and it got so popular that they've continued it on for multiple years, which is super fun. But then we've had other units who've just made a point of blitzing the parking lot and getting the flyers on everybody's car, just in a unique way of getting the information of the campaign out to individuals. So again, defer to yourself, but we are happy to jump on a call and brainstorm with you if you're stumped as to what might work locally for your unit.
Yeah, and the fundraising guide has quite a few kind of very bare bones basic how-to that might give you some good ideas too. Video game competitions, that's been one that we've seen. So I mean, it really is like what your unit loves. You know your unit best.
I see that Elena answered a question in the chat, just to make sure. I know that there are some people on the phone. CGMA does serve the entire Coast Guard community, so I'm just reiterating what she shared. We serve active duty, retirees, reserve, the auxiliary, as well as civilian employees. But your local campaign at the unit level is going to cover those active duty members and civilian employees. And then if you do have any exchange employees or NAF employees, you can reach out to them.
Does anyone have any CGMA program questions? We know that not everybody is going to be super familiar with CGMA, and we went over that pretty quickly. So happy to answer those questions in our time together too.
They're really, I would say, one of the things to keep in mind is that CGMA tries to get to yes. So if there's a need, they should reach out to their local rep and see what assistance might be available. There really is just a host of programs, but we just have general assistance, that there isn't a program for every situation that someone has ever faced. So if someone's facing a financial challenge, they should reach out and ask for help. And that really is what we're here for, and how we are structured to be able to provide assistance. So just a reminder, all donations are tax deductible because we are that nonprofit charity. And then over the last few years, we've brought in about 2 million in donations, whereas we've been able to give last year 9.9 million in assistance. So one of the ways we can do that is because of the return on investments, the loans that are coming back, but there is still a delta. And so that's why you are so valuable and so important. The success of this campaign is that we could not do the on the ground fundraising without amazing coordinators. And we thank you so much for your effort. And we want you to know that we're a resource for you. Feel free to reach out by phone, email, whatever works best for you. And we're happy to jump on a call to discuss further how to be successful at your local unit. So get finding those key workers and those that are going to help make you successful. And I think do we have another question, Elena? Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, super.
Good confirmation.
No, that's great. That's great. Elena, I think, had another thing to say.
Oh no. I think we are happy to stay on for a couple more minutes. If anybody has questions, don't feel like you have to put it in the chat. You can certainly pop off mute and just ask away. If you're going through the campaign and you're like, oh man, like I would be so successful if I had X, or if only I had this, let us know. There's typically something that we can either pull from something else we already have, or could create for you. The two things that come to mind were the giving guide. That was something that we had been asked to provide in years past, and so that's available in your coordinator instructions. And then the social media kit emails, that was also something that came from the field of, hey, it'd be really nice to have this, and so we were happy to create that and provide that as a resource for you. So we know that you guys are going to do amazing things. We're so excited. We'll be here cheering you on. And if you have questions, always reach out. Happy to help. Erica and I will hang on for a little bit longer if anybody has any other questions. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time today.